With the help of some brothers and sisters, this podcast was created to discuss some spiritual topics that you may have questions about. The goal is that you gain a better understanding on the topic, but more importantly, that you grow closer to the Lord. With the help of my little buddy, kick us off.
Stop being potato, Hudson.
Welcome to Stop Being a Pew Potato. I am Josh Hudson, and today I'm very excited because I'm with the Smiths. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello, thank you.
As far as an introduction today, I want to read 1 Peter 4, 8 through 10. And the ESV version says this: Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling, as each have received a gift. Use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. For those who are listening, my family and I moved from Georgia to Tennessee about a year and a half ago, and we did so because of work. And we didn't know anybody. Fortunately, we found a church family pretty quickly. Having said that, we had no blood relatives around. For us, we had certain people within the church that reached out to us to make us feel more comfortable and equally encouraged. Guys, when I read verses like 1 Peter 4, 8 through 10, I think of Christians like you. You guys have taken extra time to encourage my family. Doug, you send me a daily scripture to keep my thoughts on things above, and Lisa, you're very impactful to both my wife and myself. Which is why I asked you to come to be a part of the podcast, so that we could talk about different ways to be encouraged. Because in reality, no matter who you are in life or where you are, everyone needs a Barnabas. So thank you for your time today, and thank you for doing the work that you do in the kingdom.
Well, we appreciate you inviting us to do the podcast.
Today I want to go through 3 different areas of our life where we can be encouraged. And let's start with encouraging your spouse. Let's talk about the work stressors. Now, you guys have a unique situation because you both work at the same place. So you may handle this a little bit differently than some. But when you know that someone, like if Doug, you're more bogged down, do you see it? And if so, how can you encourage him and the other way around?
Well, we talked about this last night, and it's all about communication and knowing one another, so that when that time comes when she is bogged down, stressed at work, then I can see it, recognize it, and most of the time I try to help her with this situations. And of course, we're different. Our personalities are so opposite in some ways, and so she does the same for me. But again, it's just mostly about communication and knowing one another and realizing what each other's needs are.
And he said it right there. And the thing about spouses and being married, and it doesn't matter whether you've been married 1 year or 50 years, your needs change. So the only way that you're going to know what those needs are is to have constant communications, because needs can be seasonal. It can be different things going on in your life at a certain time during the year. So that communication is just very important. And to be watchful, watch for body language, watch for, just any of those type things to signal that. And the earlier that you communicate about it and nip it, the easier it is to get through those times.
So your kids are grown, and one of them's about to go to college. Mm-hmm. I'm in the other side of the boat right now. I have 2 boys. One's a baby, and one is a 3-year-old. I see Haley being stressed, right? You guys have been through this before. What do you do to encourage someone when whether it be a dad or a mom? How have you handled it in the past?
Well, going back to when our kids were smaller, and granted we were young, and I hate to say young and dumb, but when you're young, you are in a learning curve. Just like when you change seasons of your life, you're in another curve. But when we were younger and we were both working, and there again, communication, sit down, see what her needs are at that time. Being home with 2 small kids every day, she probably needs some me time, and try to work out that time to where she can have her moments to recharge, those kinds of things. And just always let her know how much you appreciate the things that she does for your family.
Doug, did you ever, I've been in the kitchen with Haley where she is venting and I'm thinking I need to fix it.
Oh, yeah.
And then I try to fix it and I'm not fixing it. She's been talking to children all day and she just wants to talk. She's finally getting an adult in front of her and she wants to talk to me. Maybe learning from a mistake, how could you have encouraged her more so when she was dealing with something like that?
Well, I think every husband makes that mistake of trying to fix things when all they want to do is talk and vent. And even to this day, I find myself wanting to do that, fix rather than just listen. And again, a lot of that comes with experience and age. And we've talked a lot about in Bible classes about the cycles of life. That that's a cycle that what you guys are going through right now. And it's a cycle that we've, as you mentioned, have already been through. And so your life changes as time goes on, and you deal with different things. But with back to that situation, I just had to learn to just listen. I don't know how well I did that, but I had to learn that she just needs to vent.
Right.
And we last night we were studying in 1 Kings, and Elijah was venting to God, and when at the point to where he thought he was the only one left, and God let him vent. And we noticed after he finished, God whispered to him. And so we just, again, we're probably going to keep going back to this communication and knowing and understanding one another and one another's needs. Because it's really that's the foundation of how to deal with all of these different things that you experience.
Well, I think the point is if you're listening to each other, you're going to know how to encourage each other in both of the areas we've talked about so far.
Right.
So this is more of a challenge to me as far as thinking about someone spiritually. Sometimes I wonder if your spouse knows if you are that pew potato. If you're if they can see that. You might be able to fool the world, but can you fool your spouse, kind of thing? In the past, has there been a time where one of you were, not as good as you are now? And then if so, did you confront the other one about them spiritually? Like, how are you doing spiritually, kind of thing?
Sure, yeah, we did that because everybody goes through that. Everybody has those valleys and hills where you're in a spiritual slump and you need some kind of encouragement. And who better than your spouse? They know you better than anyone. But it's even better than that when you have a church family who may recognize that also. But back to the spouse, they're the one that can make the difference because, again, they see it. They recognize it before anyone else does. And yes, we have to do that for one another.
Lisa, when you first were married, you probably were not as bold talking to him about spiritual things because it was uncomfortable. At least that's what might have been my experience. And as years go by, then you just get more comfortable to talk about uncomfortable things. Is that the case for you guys? That
it was actually the opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
She was. I wasn't baptized till I was 18 years old, and so I was the one who had to catch up, so to speak. And so she was a great encouragement to me, and her family was as well, for me to get to where I needed to be.
Wow.
In those early years, too, because he was a new Christian, and we married when we were 18, so we were just kids playing house, and on top of that, he was a new Christian. And so it was hard for me because I have a strong personality anyway, and then you have the husband and wife, the husband being the leader, and then him being a young Christian.
Right.
So we really had to take opportunities, and we had a Christian in our church at that time that kind of took Doug under his wing and mentored him, and spent a lot of time with him. And that helped out with me keeping my role where it needed to be,
How many years have you guys been married?
Almost 38.
now with that experience, what would you say to someone who may be in a different position than what you just described, that they are too timid to talk to their spouse, whether it be male or female, about they know that they are spiritually weak and they want them to get better? Like, how aggressive should you be, or what are ways that you can encourage that situation?
One thing that I think that I wished we had done at an earlier age in our married life that we do now is we pick a book out each year to go through together as a married couple that just tries to keep our faith strong. And if you start doing that early in your married life, not only does it keep you strengthened, but it also opens the door for those conversations to where you can say, how are you really doing on that subject?
Right.
You know, to where you're not really pouncing on your spouse, but you're just finding out information. And that can lead into maybe calling in someone outside to just have some extra studies or extra time or coffees or whatever needs to happen before it becomes a problem. But I think it's very, very important that the spouse is confronted, because living a lie, so to speak, just breeds more problems than you want to deal with later.
Do you guys pray together? I mean, like, I'm not just talking about it like in a environment where you're eating or you leading in services. Do you pray together other than that?
Yes, we do.
Do you find that has strengthened you more so? Because that's a setting that most people are too uncomfortable with.
Yes, it is. And, praying in the beginning was a little awkward. It was like, okay, this is different. Usually doing this at church or at a dinner table. And so it was a little bit awkward in the beginning, but it's something that you should do.
Right.
It should be a part of your life.
Right. Moving on to an area where there's no secret you both thrive at is how to encourage your church family. How do you know who to talk to? Do you just feel like, my job is to love my brothers and sisters, so I'm just going to try to encourage everybody? Or can you just see, like, this person's hurting, this person needs help, and I'm going to identify that situation and help them?
Well, we, again, because of our age and the experiences we've been through, we tend to look and watch for people. And another thing that we do, I think that helps, is, and you may have noticed, every quarter of the year, we change where we sit in the auditorium. And we do that for a reason, because when you have a larger group of people, it can be to where you get caught up in one small group, and that's where you are. Now for you guys, it's a little different. You're in that cycle of life where you have small children, we have many small families, and that's just easy. There'll come a day for you guys where you may be able to do something and get more involved with other people. But that's what we try to do is, as you said, we try to watch and pay attention. And when we do recognize someone is hurting or something is just not quite right, we try to go to them and offer help. And, even if it's just letting them know that they're loved and that someone cares about them, that's what we try to do.
Right.
We try to look around and see the Christians that are there, or people within the congregation that aren't specifically hanging around to talk. We try to look around and see the ones that maybe only come in for worship. Because usually if someone's leaving in a hurry or someone is getting there late, there's usually an underlying reason for that. So we feel that they are in need of us more so than, not that they're any more important than, but just maybe need us more than someone that seems to be on their game. And we do try, we don't always do it, but our goal is once a month to try and have couples or individuals to lunch that are not, they're not in attendance all the time. Okay. just to kind of talk with them, speak with them, have more of an intimate relationship with them in a quieter, smaller venue so that you can talk. So if they need to open up about anything, they feel free to do that instead of everyone watching at the church building or,
Right.
or whatever. So we do try to do that too.
Yeah, she mentioned the term underlying problem, and we've had recent talks about people who quit attending or people who actually leave the church. And, in our discussions, that is a result of another problem. There's something going on for someone to get to that point to where they're not attending regularly or they even leave. And so we try to be aware of that and help people when we can.
So for someone, another Christian who maybe that hasn't encouraged someone before and that want to start doing this kind of thing with their brothers and sisters, you've named off some things that you guys do. What could they start doing? What's something simple?
Well, I think too it comes back to personality. Some people are more outgoing and like crowds and like people, and some don't. So you have to decide for yourself. It may be for you as simple as shaking someone's hand that you normally don't. Going out of your way to go to that person who's on the other side of the building and just simply speak to that person. Or it might even be that they need a hug.
Right.
They need you to tell them, I love you, I care about you. But just start out small, just small things. Just make baby steps.
I agree with what he said. For young couples your age with kids and you're coming from Bible class into worship, that's a big transition time there. So, instead of walking directly to your seat, have Wyatt with you and you just walk down the other side of another aisle, shaking hands and patting people on the back, and let Wyatt shake a hand too, because that's a great teaching moment for him at a young age.
I think something that you guys talked about, just moving pews, is really important, because if you don't want to say there's cliques within the church, but there are. And if you sit on one side of the building, you're gonna, whether you want to say it or not, you're in a clique. Right. And I'm guilty of that. So when you make yourself move, then you can still have that kind of loving relationship with everybody.
Right.
We've always joked throughout our life is that Doug has always said we're all things to all people, because we had older children and younger children. Right. So we were invited to different things all the time because we had older kids. So we were with the older couples. Right. But then we had Alexis, who put us in a 10-year difference, age difference with couples. So, we had a variety of couples that we were with.
Right.
So when you're 40 years old, adopt or have another child.
Well, moving into something that's, I would say, the most challenging. I know talking to your spouse if they're spiritually sick could be, extremely challenging, but ways to encourage are lost. This is something that I think people shy from. We talked about this recently. It's easier to love someone that believes the same thing as you than not. And so when you're thinking about people that are lost, do you try to build a relationship with them in the beginning so that you can encourage them, or are you just flat out try to encourage them regardless of having a relationship or not?
Well, we talked about that, and relationships are so important, whether in the church or outside the church, and even with those who are lost. You've got to build a relationship, some kind of relationship, and that opens the door for conversation. And the more that, the better that relationship gets with time, the easier the conversations will be, and the easier it will be to talk to that person who is lost and hopefully save their soul someday.
Right.
But yeah, we firmly believe you've got to have some kind of relationship with someone.
And relationship is a big word, because it can be a deep relationship or it can be a new relationship. So when you are trying to encourage someone that's lost, it could be someone you've met at Chick-fil-A,
right,
and you're sitting there and you really don't know this person, but you've had a really nice conversation with them. You don't have a deep relationship, but you have some type of communication there to where there's always something that you can do, whether it's to give them a little card, a piece of paper with your phone number on it. Always invite them to services, so relationship is a big word. Don't think you've got to have some deep relationship
Absolutely.
for that
That's a good point.
encouraging.
Yep.
But I think it's good to have some kind of conversation to take you into that direction.
Yeah, and I think people get the idea of being a peculiar person. That's hard for people to understand. They just think, well, I can't do certain things that I want to do. When in reality, if you're walking in the light, people are going to see that. You're different, and they're going to be, that's encouraging to people just by acting a certain way.
Yeah, they're going to see that.
So let's say you do have a relationship with someone, and you've been working at it for a long time, praying about it even, and then they start pushing you back. They push you away, and that can be discouraging, even for an encouraging person or people like you guys. How do you handle that?
One thing that I think about is that we have to still keep them in front of us because they are a lost soul. And as much as it might discourage us or hurt us because they're not letting us in any longer, is to always let them know that we're there. They might need some processing time. They're having to make some decisions about their life and maybe about their family that we have not necessarily had to deal with. So they might push back, but we have to remember they're not really pushing back on us. They're pushing back on the Word.
Absolutely.
What they've heard and what they're going to have to process because of maybe changes that they're going to have to make in their lives. And it's still about their relationship with God, not our relationship with them.
Absolutely.
And they are the ones that have to walk the walk. And we can't push them to do that. They're going to have to do that in their time. But we can continue to pray for them and to continue to pray that God grants them the time to walk that walk.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think we have to continue to be a light. As she's pointed out, they need to realize, even if they walk away or push us away, that they still know we're there. Like she said, that we're available. That we didn't push them away. That their perception of us is that they're still there. All I have to do is turn back. I go back to them and reach out to them.
What you both said, it reminds me of, and I jotted this down, Galatians 6:9. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up.
True. And two, the scriptures teach us that we sow the seed, God's going to give the increase. Because the world is the world and Satan is out there. And he is going to be fighting for that soul as much as we are. Right. And so we just have to remember to have our attitudes in check so that that person knows that even though they might push us away or they might say, I'm done talking about this, we have to realize that that is just a processing time. Continue to pray. Continue to let them know we're there. We want to lead them. We want to meet them where they are and lead them in the right direction, but give them time to make those decisions on their own, not for us, but for themselves. I
think the biggest challenge that I have, I'm going to use this example. When you see a dog on the side of the road and they've been hit, you go to help the dog, it'll bite at you. It just doesn't know any better. And so sometimes with certain people, they're hurting spiritually, and they're like that dog on the road. You go help and they start to bite you. It's very easy for us to react differently to people. I think the thing that I struggle with the most is not saying something back to them if I'm hurt. So not controlling my tongue in that kind of situation. And with that thought, Ephesians 4:29, let no corrupt talk come out of your mouths, but only such as it is good for building up, as it fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. It's so important for us to just stay focused on what you've described, is that this is a challenge for them. It's in front of them. This is a life change, this for your words, for it not to hurt us, but realize that this is just a lot to process for them. Let's say that someone's listening and they want to be an encourager. they've gotten some ideas about how to do it with their spouse and things like that. But you described it may not be in their personality to do that. But let's say they really want to. Do you think it's just your personality, or is this something that you read about or you were praying about and you just pushed yourself to do it? What would you tell someone that wants to be an encourager, wants to be someone's Barnabas?
Well, one thing is to get involved. And I guess it does go back to personality, because we can look out among just in our congregation and we see people who care and love one another, but yet they approach it different ways. Some people are just, they're all about people. They want to get involved. They want to be part of the crowd. And then you have people who aren't as social, but yet they are still involved. They still encourage. I think of one of the men of our congregation who is an encourager. I've known that he's gone to some of the single mothers and just one-on-one and encouraged them just in the things that he said. And that, he was just between him and her, and that was it. So there's so many different ways you can do it. And as I mentioned earlier, start small. Just do something small. Shaking someone's hand could be a start. If you're the type who is just really not social at all, if you're one of those who struggles to shake someone's hand or even speak, that's the first step. That's a small step. So, just do something. Get involved in some way, some shape, form, or fashion, no matter how small it might be.
Take the list of the sick or the shut-ins and make a point every week. Pick out 3 people that you're going to make some type of difference in their life, whether it be a card, a handshake, a pat on the back, whatever it is. Start out with just 3 people a week, and we're at services 3 times a week. So that's just 1 person per service. Right. And, so plan ahead before time to already have your plan in effect, or have your plan there, so that when you see that person, you already know who you're going after.
That's great.
Type. And it's finally going to just be a natural thing after you do that and you build up. You'll go from 3 to 6 to 9, and you'll be doing it before you know it, talking to everybody.
Another thing I could suggest would be to, when it comes to worship services, get there 5 minutes earlier than you normally do.
I feel like you looked at me really intensely, like you're late all the time.
Well, I'm the people person. Lisa's not so much. She is, but not as much as I am. So we have this battle and struggle of when we leave to go to worship service, because I want to get there early, really early.
Right.
And she's not really so much about that, because I want to mingle and mix with everyone. In fact, my children call me a meerkat because I'm so nosy looking around at who's there. But again, going back to my point, get there a few minutes early. That gives you time to talk to, if only one person, that's one person.
You're putting yourself in a position to be able to encourage someone, as opposed to not.
Or even staying a little bit later. Just those little things. It does. Doesn't take you don't have to do something huge.
Are there any scriptures that have encouraged you? And if so, would you like to share them?
Well, I think of Romans 8:28, and that gives me encouragement throughout life, no matter what's going on, knowing that everything's going to be okay. I was talking to one of our employees just the other day, and he's struggling in his personal life, and I made that point to him that it's going to be okay. We all experience these hills and valleys in life, and when we're in that valley, it seems like we can't see over the top of the hill.
Right.
And but for me, Romans 8:28 is just a verse that helps me know that no matter how deep that valley might be, it's going to be okay.
Mine is always Philippians 4. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. If I keep my eyes set on Him, then I can do whatever that I need to do. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. I can just do it as long as I'm there.
Mine's very similar. Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. That's always knowing, like you described, Doug, and you too. no matter where you're at, where you're going through. A lot of times people just assume God's with you during the happy times. He's with you just as equally when you're going through the valleys. With that, I'd like to thank you both for your time today and encouraging my family and then helping other people find ways to encourage other people.
Thank you for asking us.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you don't mind, just give us a little review. Click subscribe. We would appreciate it. God bless.